In this lesson, we'll implement Firebase integration in dartfrog and provide Firestore as a NoSQL cloud-based database for application. Firestore is just mainly used for storing and managing structured data in form of JSON objects. So we'll manage one of the entities in our application, which is lists, and the items entity will just have the same logic. So let's proceed to our application. Back to our app, we'll head over, create a new root, and inside here, if you recall, in our root, you can create different roots, and also that's where the middleware, you can set up your middleware, the middleware of a specific root. So what we're going to do first, we're going to create the middleware that will handle Firebase, and to do that, we're going to create it inside a folder called db, and inside db we'll create another folder called Firebase, because in this tutorial we're going to be looking at different types of tables, so we just want to divide the logic in the specific folders. So to do that, to create a middleware, we just run dartfrog new middleware db fbase. So it will create a folder called db and create another folder called fbase, and then create a middleware file. Let's navigate to our project and run that command again. And there we have it. Inside our roots folder, we now have a db folder and a fbase folder which has a middleware file. Great. So just as the structure of middleware, if you recall the previous, when we were discussing what middleware is, it's just basically, this file consists of a function called middleware that holds a parameter of type handler, and handler is just a function that handles a request that comes in via request context, and it returns a handler. So the one time that we have created a middleware in this tutorial, has the middleware has been looking, the structure has been looking like this. So now we're going to create inside the middleware, we're going to handle it differently, and you'll get to see how to implement certain things in middleware that we had discussed. Like, for example, if you want to perform request transformation, response transformation, if you want to initialize certain things before a request is performed, this is where you're going to see how to do that. So we're going to do a return and pass in a context, and then add a sync, and inside here we're going to do a number of things. So first things first, since we're focusing on Firebase, we'll need a specific package in Dart, which is FireDart. So we'll just run dart pub add FireDart cd task list. So we've already installed it. So inside there, we're going to do a few things. And before we do anything, let's go back to our Firebase site and create a new project by going to go to console. And inside there, we're going to add a new project and call it task list dartfrog. Click on continue. You can enable if you want to. And let's just create our project. Our project is ready, so we click on continue, and now that we have our project, let's go back to our application. And first things first, we are going to use Firestore in our code. So now we're going to create a function. We have to initialize Firestore first. So to initialize it, we should just say firestore.initialize, and then we're going to pass the project ID. Where we'll get the project ID, we'll find it in project overview. Click on project settings and you'll get the project ID here. So we're just going to click that, copy that, and then come and paste it in our application. But now we don't want to initialize this Firestore every single time. So we're going to do a small check and say if Firestore dot initialized, and then we add this symbol to mean if Firestore dot is not initialized, that is, please initialize it, else let's proceed to use the instance that's currently existing. Great. Now that we have done that, we'll proceed to forward the request to the respective handler. By doing that, we just say await handler and pass the context. But now whatever will be returned is a response, so we want to get it from here and initialize it to our response variable. And now that we have that, we can simply return response. So whenever you get a specific response, in case if it's a different type of integration other than Firebase, maybe you're getting some type of information from a specific REST API. If you get a certain type of format for the response and you want to change it to us, maybe a friendlier or a format that you actually expect, you can do a response transformation over here before you return your response. So this is why you do such things in the middleware. This is the function of the middleware. You get to manipulate a request or initialize certain things that you need them running or running in the application before you handle a request. And then when you get a response, this is where you can handle your response before you return it. Great. Now that we have our middleware, we're going to create a specific route inside our Firebase route. So we're just going to say dartfrog new route and pass that. And pass that. So new route, we specify the db fbase, and now when we leave it like this, it's just going to create an index.dart where we haven't specified the name. So let's just minimize this. So here is our route handler, and inside this route handler we're going to perform two types of requests. We're going to do a get and a post. So we'll just clear this and perform our switch, and inside this switch we're going to be checking the method that's passed. Great. So we're going to handle it as htt method.get. If it is a get, we're going to define, it's going to call a specific function, and we are going to call it get lists, which expects a request context as a parameter. So we proceed to take this and paste it here and pass the context. Next, we're going to pass the http method.post. We're also going to handle the post here. So let's define our function and call it create list. Copy this, pass it the context, else let's set this to future async, else future dot value, and let's return a response of status code http status dot method not allowed, which will find it in the library.io. Let's add our semicolon. Great. So we are done with this. Now let's handle our two functions. So for get list, we're going to define a variable called lists that will hold a type map, and the key will be of type string, and our value will be of type dynamic. Then inside here we're going to get the current instance of Firestore, Let's import it. Dot instance dot collection. The reason we're getting this error because there's no async. Great. So dot collection. Collection is equivalent to tables in relational databases. It's just a group of related data that are put together. So in our case, we'll create a collection that's called task lists, and this collection will just hold a group of lists. Great. Then we're going to call the get method, and then we're going to register a callback. Great. So the value holds a type of page document. So what page is? Page is a set of number of documents. I would make it equivalent to like an array or a list of documents. Now, according to Firebase, they define it as page. And then a document is just a JSON-like object that contains a key value. So this page holds different types of a list of documents of type JSON object. Great. So let's just rename the word value to event. Better yet, let's just do this. Event. Then inside here, we're going to use a for loop. So what's coming here is of type page, which we have said it's like a type of array. So we want to loop through this page and pick a document each, and then that document, because it comes in form of type document, which is only understood by Firebase, we need to get the map for that specific document and then add it to a specific variable. So to do that, we just say for final doc in event, and then just call a variable up there, list.add doc.map. So whatever is being passed here is of type map string dynamic, which is what the variable expects to be passed. So this variable of ours is an array or a list, but it's holding objects of type map string dynamic. Great. Now that we are done with that, we want to return a response, and that response will be .json, and then we'll set our body to lists to string. Great. Now let's handle the create list. For our create list, we'll come here and pick our body from the request context. To do that, you just run, let's pass a sync here, await context.request.json, and cast it as a map string dynamic. Next, we're going to pick whatever is in the body is a JSON. We want to pick value of key name, because when we're creating a list, we just need the name. So we just define it as name is equals to body name and cast it as string. Great. So let's create a list object that holds this name. That will be of type string dynamic. It will be a map. Then just pass in name and give it the variable. The value will be of the variable name. Now that we have that, let's proceed now to push it to Firestore. And to do that, we just run firestore.instance. We're picking the instance that's currently there. We're heading to the collection, which is task lists. Then call the add method, which will pass it the list object that we have created. We register our callback. and this callback will be a document. So we're just going to do a return doc.id. So we have created it. It has returned for us the document that we have created on Firestore. So we're just picking the ID. We don't need the document that we've just created. We just want the ID because that's what creates the uniqueness of that specific document. So what we're going to do when you're returning the ID, we want to be able to hold that value. So we're just going to initialize a variable with whatever we have created here. So it's going to return an ID, so we'll hold that ID. Now that we have that ID, we'll just return a response.json and define our body as ID. Great. Now that we are done with the two functions, let's run our development server. To do that, we just say dartfrog dev. Now that it's running, let's go to our terminal and test this, guys. So inside our terminal, we'll just come and do a curl request, and we're going to specify the root, the path, which will be dbfbase. And the reason why, if you specify dbfbase, it will go and look for our index.dat if you haven't proceeded with defining the specific root file that you want it to run. So it will go and look for index.dat, and that's where we want it to go. And since we're doing a get, it's supposed to run the get lists. So let's try that. So we're getting an internal server error. Yep. So it's an error on Firebase, permission denied. So let's head over to Firebase. And inside here, we're going to go to build Firestore. We'll create a database. Just use the test mode and enable it. Great, so now we have it. Let's try again and see if we'll get an error. There we have it. We have an empty list, or whatever is being returned is empty because of course we have nothing in our Firestore. So now let's try and create. So we'll enter curl request post. Let's use one of the existing posts that we have, but now we're going to specify the URL. Instead of items, we're going to enter dbfbase, dbfbase, and then our data or our body. Let's remove this and remain with name and give it, just retain the name shopping and see. Let's press enter. We have an error. Let's see. So converting object to an encoded object failed. Instance of future string. Let's see. So back to application. The reason why this error is there is because future string, whatever we're returning is a future string instead of returning an actual string. So what we need to do is pass an await here, and it will return an actual string. That was a small mistake on my end. So if we try and run this again, back to our terminal, let's try and execute this again. And there we have it. We have returned the ID of the new list that we have created. Let's do a call request get. We have an error. Let me see. So it's still a permission denied. Let's try this. Let's go to our project or to our Firestore. Over here, the rules tab. Let's check what the rules are. So I think our rules are okay. Okay. And as you can see, our data is here, whatever we have created. So we are having difficulty getting it. Let's see. So let's try and open this link. And if you look at this link, you'll see that just paste it. So API is actually enabled. You can also check if your API is enabled on this in the Google Cloud. But let's try again because I can't see any other error that could be causing this. Back to our terminal. Just run our request. Get internal server error. Let's see. You just run it again. It's now working. Let's create another list and name it. Run post. Give it the name personal. And enter. We have received the ID of our new list. Let's get it. And there we have our two lists that we have created, and we can also view it on the console, Firebase console. As you can see here, they are. So our two requests are working. Let's work on the other two. So our first two is create and read. Now let's work on update and delete. Just a quick one, friends. If you're passionate about mobile app development or just getting started, please subscribe to MOBETERST Studio and join our community of app enthusiasts. It does mean a lot. And if you like my free content and tutorials, you can also support me with coffee. Thank you. So our update and delete operations, we'll do them. We'll create another route here. Call it, let's just close this. Say dartfrog, new route, and give it and define a dynamic route. And there we have it. Let me minimize this. So here it is. Same design as the other one, but now we're passing the context and also passing a string ID. Because we're using the ID to delete a document and we're using an ID to get the document that we need to update and then update it. So let's just clear all this. Let's begin. Return switch, pass in the context.request.method, and inside here we are handling two operations, patch and delete. So http method.patch, and we want it to call a specific function, response update list. request context. We're passing that, and also we're passing the string ID that has been passed in the request. Great, so let's copy this and pass in the context and the ID. Next we have the HTTP method.delete. Let's define our function here. Delete list. Copy this and paste it, pass the parameters. And now we set the default. So we'll come over here and pass future response and add in a sync. So if it falls on the default case, pass in future.value and specify our response and set the status code to HTTP status dot method not allowed, which we'll find it in .io. Great. Now let's work on our update list. So as obvious, we need to get whatever is in the body, what has been passed. So just set this to a sync. So we'll say await context dot request dot JSON and cast it as map string dynamic. Then we're going to pick the value of key type name from our body and cast it as string. Then let's call our Firebase instance, Firestore instance. Let's just import this. Call our collection, which is task list. And then define, get the document of type ID, this ID. And then now we update by passing a map string dynamic. So we're going to pass in the name. Will now hold whatever the user wants to update here. And we are done. And then next thing we're going to do is just return a response, because we have to return a response, and set the status code to HTTP status no content. Great. Now let's work on the delete. So for our delete, we'll just do, let's set a sync, await, call our Firestore instance dot collection, specify our collection, which is task list, and get the document of type ID, and then call the delete method. We'll register a callback. And then return response status code HTTP status dot no content. But let's, after this, let's also handle let's handle the error in case there's any exception that appears or any error that may occur. We'll return a response and set the status code to http.status.makeBudRequest. Then outside the callback, we'll just return a response status code dot bad request. So if it doesn't fall over here, it will either fall over here or over here. And there is our delete function. Now let's test our two operations. So back here, we're going to do a patch. And since we have, this is personal, we can pick this ID. And over here, db fbase forward, we paste the ID. And then inside here, we just add the text personal stuff. But let's confirm first if we are running our dev server. We are not, so let's run it. Dartfrog dev. Great. Back to our terminal. Let's run this CRUD request. So we're just passing in a patch, so it will know it's an update. And then we're passing our request will have an ID at the end. And then we're going to pass the data and update gears, add an update. It was personal, so we expect it to change to personal stuff. If we enter that, we said if it goes successful, we pass in no content. So let's head over to, we have two options. We can either check on the Firestore or just run a get over here. Let's just run a get and see. And here we have it. Our name has changed from personal, this one, to personal stuff. So our update operation is working. Let's work on the delete. So for our delete, we just take CRUD request delete. Let's this is one of the old URLs that we had worked on. db fbase, and then let's pass our the ID of this specific personal stuff, which is this. And let's paste it there and enter. So we said if it goes through, pass no content. So if we try and run get, because you can see our personal stuff list has been deleted. Awesome. So we in this lesson, we are focused on Firebase, how to interact with it. We have performed the CRUD operations. So in a situation where you want to implement Firebase and you don't want that logic to be on the mobile application, we can be able to use dartfrog, a backend framework, and just add all the logic there as we have done in our dartfrog application. We have broken things down. We have a route that handles the create and the read, and then we have specified another route that handles the update and the delete, and then we're able to handle initialization in our middleware. So I hope that makes sense. I hope you have understood, and let's proceed to the next type of database.